Please hold my waist, my ex is around, unaware the stranger was a lonely billionaire who'd change her life. The rooftop bar overlooked the entire city, its glass walls offering a breathtaking view of downtown lights stretching toward the horizon. Friday night energy filled the space, laughter, clinking glasses, conversations mixing with smooth jazz playing from speakers hidden throughout the elegant venue. Lila Morgan stood near the bar, holding a glass of champagne she'd barely touched, trying to let herself enjoy this moment. She'd earned it. After 3 years of working long hours, taking on extra projects, proving herself over and over again, she'd finally been promoted to senior project coordinator at her marketing firm. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but to Lila, it meant everything. It meant she'd rebuilt herself. It meant she'd been right to keep going when everything felt impossible. It meant she was more than what her ex had said she was. Her co-workers surrounded her, celebrating loudly, already on their 3rd round of drinks. "To Lila!" her friend Jessica shouted, raising her glass. "The hardest worker I know, and the most deserving person for this promotion." Everyone cheered, and Lila felt warmth spread through her chest. These people had supported her through the darkest period of her life. They'd witnessed her transformation from the broken woman who could barely get through a workday without crying in the bathroom to the confident professional she'd become. "Speech," someone called out. No speech," Lila laughed, shaking her head. "I'm just grateful. Thank you all for being here tonight." She excused herself to get another drink, needing a moment alone to process everything. "Before I continue with this story, I want you to tell me where you're watching from and what time is it. And if this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss my upcoming story." The bar was crowded, but she found a small space at the counter and signaled the bartender. As she waited, she let herself look around the venue properly for the first time. It really was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture with clean lines, ambient lighting that made everything feel sophisticated without being cold. She understood why her co-workers had chosen this place. It was the kind of venue for celebrating important moments, the kind of place where you felt like you'd made it. Lila was admiring the view when she felt it, that prickling sensation of being watched. She turned slightly, and her heart stopped. Standing about 20 feet away, near one of the large windows, was Ethan, her ex-boyfriend. The man who destroyed her 3 years ago with words she could still recite verbatim. And beside him, clinging to his arm like a designer accessory, was his wife. Victoria something. Lila had deliberately avoided learning her full name. She was exactly what Ethan had wanted. Tall, polished, wearing what was probably a $5,000 dress with the kind of effortless elegance that came from a lifetime of privilege. Her jewelry caught the light as she laughed at something Ethan said. And Ethan, he looked the same but different. Older maybe, more polished in his expensive suit, more comfortable in this upscale environment. He'd always wanted this. The status, the wealth, the appearance of success. He'd just decided Lila wasn't sophisticated enough to be part of that picture. As if sensing her stare, Ethan's eyes found hers across the crowded bar. Recognition flashed across his face, followed immediately by that smirk. That same condescending smirk she'd seen the night he told her she was too ordinary for the life he wanted. Panic flooded Lila's system. 3 years of healing, of building confidence, of convincing herself she was over him. All of it threatened to crumble in that single moment. She wasn't ready for this. She wasn't ready to face him here, tonight, when she was supposed to be celebrating. She wasn't ready for him to see her still affected by his presence. She wasn't ready for his pity or his judgment or whatever expression would cross his face when he inevitably came over to talk to her. Ethan said something to his wife and started moving in Lila's direction. Pure instinct took over. Lila turned away from him quickly, her eyes desperately scanning for an escape route. That's when she saw him. A man standing beside her at the bar, so close she'd somehow not noticed him before. He was tall, at least 6'2", wearing a blue tailored suit that was clearly expensive but understated. His presence was quiet but commanding, the kind of person who didn't need to demand attention because it came naturally. dark hair, strong jawline, and an air of someone who was completely comfortable in his own skin. He was looking at his phone, seemingly unaware of the chaos happening around him. Without thinking, without planning, without considering the consequences, Lila made a decision born entirely of desperation. She moved closer to the stranger and spoke in an urgent whisper. "Please," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "I know this is crazy, but could you hold my waist? My ex is right there and I need him to think I've moved on." The stranger looked up from his phone, and Lila found herself staring into deep blue eyes that showed surprise but not judgment. He glanced past her, clearly spotting Ethan approaching, then looked back at her face. For a moment, Lila thought he was going to refuse. This was insane. She was asking a complete stranger to participate in some desperate charade because she couldn't handle seeing her ex. But then the stranger's expression softened slightly, and without a word, he slipped his arm around her waist. His touch was firm but respectful, his hand resting just above her hip. "Is that better?" he murmured, his voice low and surprisingly warm. Lila felt her breath catch, not just because the act was working. She could see Ethan slowing his approach, his confident smirk faltering, but because the stranger's touch actually did make her feel better. There was something steady about his presence, something calming that cut through her panic. "Yes," she managed to say. "Thank you." The stranger shifted slightly, positioning himself so he was facing her, creating the illusion of an intimate conversation. "What's his name?" he asked quietly. "Ethan," Lila replied. "The one in the grey suit looking like he just swallowed something sour." A hint of a smile crossed the stranger's face. "And what do you want me to do when he gets here?" "Just be here," Lila said. "That's enough." The stranger nodded once, and then Ethan was upon them. "Lila," Ethan said, his voice carrying that false warmth she remembered so well. "I thought that was you. What a coincidence." Lila turned to face him, very aware of the stranger's arm still around her waist, anchoring her. "Ethan," she said, pleased that her voice came out steady. "Yes. Quite a coincidence." Ethan's eyes flickered to the stranger, assessing, calculating. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" The stranger extended his free hand before Lila could respond. "Daniel," he said simply. "Daniel Reed." Something about the way he said his name made Ethan hesitate before shaking his hand. There was quiet authority in those two words, a certainty that didn't need elaboration. "Ethan Hayes," Ethan replied, and Lila could see him trying to place Daniel, trying to figure out if he should recognize the name. Victoria had joined them now, her arm looped through Ethan's, her perfect smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Darling, who's this?" she asked in a voice that managed to be both sweet and dismissive. "This is Lila," Ethan said, "an old friend from college. Lila, this is my wife, Victoria." Old friend. As if 3 years of a relationship could be reduced to that. As if he hadn't promised her forever before deciding she wasn't valuable enough. "Nice to meet you," Lila said to Victoria, managing a polite smile. Victoria's eyes swept over Lila's dress, nice but not designer, and her jewelry, pretty but not expensive, with the kind of assessment that rich women perfected early in life. "Charming," Victoria said, though her tone suggested she meant the opposite. Daniel's arm tightened slightly around Lila's waist, a subtle show of support. "We should get back to our table," Daniel said, his voice pleasant but final. "We have reservations." It was a dismissal, polite but absolute. Ethan looked like he wanted to say more, probably to establish some superiority or make a cutting remark disguised as concern. But something about Daniel's presence, his calm certainty, his quiet authority, the expensive watch Ethan had finally noticed, made him think better of it. "Of course," Ethan said. "Good to see you, Lila. You look, well." The way he said it suggested he meant the opposite, as if well was a generous assessment of her ordinary appearance. But before Lila could respond, Daniel spoke again. "She looks beautiful," he said, his voice carrying just enough edge to make it clear he wasn't stating an opinion, but correcting an error. We should go, sweetheart. Sweetheart. The endearment rolled off his tongue so naturally that even Lila almost believed it was real. Daniel guided her away from Ethan and Victoria, his hand still on her waist, leading her through the crowd to a quieter corner of the bar. Only when they were safely away from her ex did he finally release her. Lila immediately felt the loss of his steadying presence. "I'm so sorry," she said, embarrassment flooding through her now that the immediate crisis had passed. "That was completely inappropriate. I shouldn't have put you in that position. Thank you for going along with it, but I should let you get back to whatever you were doing." She started to turn away, but Daniel's voice stopped her. "Stay," he said quietly. "I could use the company." Lila turned back, surprised. "What?" "Stay," Daniel repeated, and there was something vulnerable in his expression that caught her off guard. "Unless you'd rather not. But I've been standing at this bar alone for the past hour, and honestly, you're the most interesting thing that's happened all evening." "I asked you to fake a relationship to fool my ex," Lila said, confused. "That makes me interesting." "You were desperate enough to ask a complete stranger for help rather than let your ex see you vulnerable," Daniel said. "That takes a certain kind of courage. Or desperation. Maybe both. Either way, I'm curious about the story." Lila hesitated, looking back toward where her co-workers were still celebrating. She should rejoin them. That was the sensible thing to do. But something about Daniel's steady presence, his genuine interest, made her want to stay. "One drink," she said. "I owe you that much for the help." "You don't owe me anything," Daniel replied. "But I'd like the company anyway." They moved to a small table in a quieter section of the bar, away from both Lila's co-workers and Ethan's judgmental stare. Daniel ordered whiskey neat. Lila stayed with her champagne. For a moment they sat in silence, and Lila realized she had no idea how to start this conversation. "So," Daniel said finally, saving her from awkwardness. "Ethan, that's the ex who said you were too ordinary?" Lila's eyes widened. "How did you know that?" "The way you tensed when you saw him," Daniel said. "The panic in your eyes. The desperate need to look like you'd moved on. That's not just avoiding an ex. That's avoiding someone who made you believe something cruel about yourself." Lila felt tears threaten and blinked them back. "He left me 3 years ago, said I was too ordinary for the life he wanted, that he needed someone who could match his ambition, someone sophisticated, someone who belonged in rooms like this." She gestured around the upscale bar. "Apparently I wasn't good enough." "He's an idiot," Daniel said simply. "You don't know me," Lila replied, though without heat. "Maybe he was right. Maybe I am too ordinary." "There's no such thing as too ordinary," Daniel said. "There's just people who are real and people who are performing, and from where I'm sitting you seem very real." Something about the way he said it made Lila actually look at him. Really look at him. He was handsome in an understated way, with strong features and eyes that seemed to see more than most people. But more than that, there was something genuine about him. Something that made her feel safe enough to be honest. "I've spent 3 years rebuilding myself," Lila admitted, "convincing myself that I am enough, that I'm valuable exactly as I am, and then I see him for 5 minutes, and all that progress feels like it's crumbling." "But it's not crumbling," Daniel pointed out. "You're still here, still standing, still capable of asking for what you need, even if it's something unconventional, like recruiting a stranger to pretend to be your boyfriend." Lila laughed despite herself. "When you put it that way, I sound slightly unhinged." "You sound human," Daniel corrected, "which is more than I can say for most people in this bar." They fell into conversation after that, the kind that flows naturally once initial awkwardness passes. Daniel asked about her promotion, and Lila found herself talking about her work with genuine enthusiasm. She explained her job, coordinating marketing campaigns for various clients, managing teams, solving problems creatively. "It's not glamorous," she said. "I'm not curing diseases or changing the world, but I'm good at it, and I worked hard for this promotion." "That matters," Daniel said. "Being good at something you care about. Working hard for your own goals rather than someone else's vision. That's valuable." "What do you do?" Lila asked, realizing she'd been talking about herself for 20 minutes without asking about him. Real estate development, Daniel said vaguely. Hotels mostly. It's fine. Keeps me busy. Something about the way he said it suggested there was more to the story, but Lila didn't push. They continued talking, the conversation moving from work to books to travel to childhood memories to ridiculous pet peeves. Lila found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. Daniel was funny in a dry, understated way. He was also incredibly easy to talk to, asking thoughtful questions and actually listening to her answers. At some point, Lila glanced at her phone and was shocked to see it was past midnight. "I've been talking your ear off for over 2 hours," she said, embarrassed. "I asked you to stay," Daniel reminded her, "and I've enjoyed every minute." "Why were you alone at a bar on a Friday night?" Lila asked, curious. "Someone like you. You must have somewhere better to be." "Someone like me," Daniel repeated with a slight smile. "You know, successful, well-dressed, good conversationalist. Why are you spending Friday night alone?" Daniel's smile faded slightly. "Because I have nowhere better to be, and no one I'd rather be there with." There was something sad in his voice, something that spoke to loneliness Lila recognized. "I find that hard to believe," she said gently. "Believe it," Daniel replied. "Success isn't the same as connection. Sometimes it's the opposite. You get so focused on building things that you forget to build relationships, and then one day you look around and realize you're standing in a beautiful bar that you own, surrounded by people, and you've never felt more alone." Lila processed this. "You own this bar?" "I own the hotel it's in," Daniel admitted. "I own several hotels, actually. It's what I do. Build beautiful spaces for other people to create memories in, while I stand on the sidelines watching." "That sounds lonely," Lila said. "It is," Daniel agreed, "which is why when a beautiful woman asked me to hold her waist and pretend to be her boyfriend, I said yes. Not just to help you, but because for those few minutes I got to be part of someone's story instead of just observing." Lila felt her heart ache for this man, who had everything but nothing at the same time. "I understand that feeling," she said. "Being surrounded by people but feeling completely alone. That's how I felt in my relationship with Ethan. He was there physically, but I was invisible to him emotionally." "And now?" Daniel asked. "Now I'm choosing to be alone rather than invisible," Lila said. "Which is progress, I think. Though some days I wonder if I'm just making excuses for being scared to try again." "Fear after pain isn't weakness," Daniel said. "It's wisdom. Your heart is protecting itself." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing the unexpected depth of their conversation. Finally, Lila stood. "I should let you go. Thank you for tonight, for the fake boyfriend act, for the conversation, for reminding me that not all men are like my ex." "Can I see you again?" Daniel asked, the question catching them both by surprise. Lila hesitated. "I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm not ready for anything serious, and you seem like someone who deserves more than a woman still healing from her past." "I'm not asking for serious," Daniel said. "I'm asking for another conversation, maybe coffee. No pressure, no expectations, just two people who enjoyed talking to each other, spending more time together." Lila found herself wanting to say yes, more than she wanted to protect herself. "Coffee," she agreed, "just coffee." They exchanged numbers, and when Lila finally rejoined her co-workers, who were too drunk to notice how long she'd been gone, she felt different, lighter somehow, like possibility had opened up in her life again. The next week they met for coffee at a small cafe in a quiet neighborhood. Daniel arrived in jeans and a casual shirt, looking somehow both ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. "You look different without the suit," Lila said. "Is that good or bad?" he asked with a smile. "Good. More human, less intimidating." They spent 2 hours talking about everything and nothing. Daniel told her about growing up middle class in Chicago, about his parents who'd worked hard to give him opportunities, about how he'd built his first hotel from a property most investors thought was unsalvageable. "I was 26, he said. "I had no business attempting something that ambitious, but I was too naive to know it was impossible, so I did it anyway." "That's not naive," Lila said. "That's brave." "Maybe," Daniel replied. "Or maybe it's what you do when you have nothing to lose. Now I have everything to lose and I'm more cautious. Sometimes I wonder if that's growth or cowardice. Lila told him about her own dreams, maybe starting her own marketing consulting firm someday, traveling more, writing a book about recovering from heartbreak. Do it, Daniel encouraged. The consulting firm, the travel, the book. Why wait? Because I'm scared, Lila admitted. Because failing at my own business would hurt worse than failing at a relationship. Because dreams are safer when they're still just dreams. But they're also emptier, Daniel pointed out. They met again the following weekend and the weekend after that. Coffee dates turned into lunch dates, turned into long walks through the city. Daniel showed her his favorite hidden spots, a tiny bookstore in an alley, a park bench with the perfect view of the sunset, a bakery that made the best croissants in the city. Lila showed him her world, the community art center where she volunteered sometimes, the farmer's market where she bought fresh flowers every Saturday, the vintage movie theater that still showed classic films. With each meeting, Lila felt herself opening up more. The walls she'd built around her heart after Ethan weren't crumbling. They were being gently dismantled brick by brick through Daniel's patient presence. He never pushed for more than she offered. He never made her feel like she owed him anything for his time or attention. He just showed up consistently and genuinely, making space for her exactly as she was. One afternoon, about 6 weeks after they'd met, they were walking through an art gallery when Lila's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and froze. It was a message from a number she'd blocked months ago. Somehow Ethan had gotten a new number. "Lila, I need to talk to you. It's important. Please don't ignore this." Daniel noticed her expression change. "Everything okay?" "It's Ethan," Lila said, showing him the message. "I blocked him after he kept trying to contact me after the bar, but apparently he got a new number." "Do you want to respond?" Daniel asked carefully. "No," Lila said immediately. "I don't want anything to do with him, but I'm worried he'll keep escalating if I ignore him." "Block this number too," Daniel suggested. "And if he continues, we can look at getting a restraining order if necessary." Lila blocked the number, but the message had unsettled her. Why was Ethan trying to reach her now, 6 weeks after seeing her at the bar? The answer came 2 days later when Jessica called her in a panic. "Lila, I have to tell you something," Jessica said. "Please don't be mad, but I posted some photos from your celebration on social media. I tagged you in them without thinking, and one of the photos, it's of you and that guy from the bar, the one who pretended to be your boyfriend." Lila felt dread settling in her stomach. "Okay, and?" "And Ethan must have seen it because he commented on my post asking who the guy was. I didn't respond, but then someone else, I think it was Brad from accounting who used to work with Ethan, commented with Daniel's full name. And Lila?" I looked him up. "Daniel Reed. Do you know who he is?" "He owns some hotels," Lila said carefully. "Some hotels?" "Lila, he's a billionaire. He owns the Reed Hotel Group. He's been featured in Forbes. He's one of the most successful real estate developers in the country. And he's dating you?" "We're not dating," Lila said automatically. "We're just spending time together. Whatever you want to call it, Ethan definitely knows now. I saw him commenting on other people's profiles, asking questions about you and Daniel. I think he's freaking out." After the call, Lila sat in her apartment trying to process this information. She'd known Daniel was successful. He owned hotels after all. But she hadn't realized the extent of his wealth or status. No wonder Ethan was suddenly so interested in contacting her. This wasn't about still caring for her. This was about jealousy that she'd moved on with someone far more successful than he'd ever be. That evening, Lila met Daniel for dinner and confronted him directly. "You didn't tell me you were a billionaire," she said without preamble. Daniel sighed. "I was hoping we could get to know each other without that piece of information coloring everything." "It's not just a piece of information, Daniel. It's your entire life. It changes everything." "Does it?" Daniel challenged. "Does knowing I have money change how you felt during our conversations? Does it change the fact that we enjoy each other's company? Does it make me a different person than who you've been getting to know?" "It makes you someone Ethan would be interested in," Lila said, "and that makes me feel like I'm being used in some kind of competition I don't want to be part of." "I'm not interested in competing with your ex," Daniel said firmly. "I barely thought about him after that night at the bar." My interest in you has nothing to do with him and everything to do with you. But he's suddenly very interested in me, Lila said. He's been trying to contact me. My friend says he's been asking around about us, and I can't help but think that if you were just a regular guy, he wouldn't care at all. Probably not, Daniel admitted. But that says something about him, not about you or me. It says that I'm only valuable to him when I'm with someone valuable, Lila said, feeling old wounds reopening. Which means I still haven't proven anything to him. Why do you need to prove anything to him? Daniel asked gently. Lila, he doesn't get a vote anymore. His opinion of you, good or bad, is irrelevant. You don't need his validation. I know that intellectually, Lila said, but emotionally, I'm still that woman he told wasn't enough. And now he thinks I'm enough because I'm with you, and that makes me feel like I'm still being measured by who's standing next to me. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. Then let's be clear about something. I'm not dating you because of what it says about me. I'm not with you to make anyone jealous or to prove a point. I'm here because over the past 6 weeks, you've become the best part of my day. Because I look forward to our conversations. Because you make me laugh and think and feel things I haven't felt in years. Because you're kind and honest and genuine in a world full of people performing. He squeezed her hand gently. Your ex thinks your value is determined by your relationship status. But the truth is, you're valuable all on your own. You were valuable before me, and you'll be valuable after me if this doesn't work out. I'm just lucky enough to get to spend time with someone remarkable. Lila felt tears welling up. How do you always know the right thing to say? I don't, Daniel said honestly. I just tell you the truth as I see it. They continued their relationship, but Lila remained uneasy about Ethan's sudden renewed interest. Her instincts were proven right 2 weeks later when Ethan showed up at her workplace. Lila was leaving the office, heading to meet Daniel for dinner, when she saw him standing by her car in the parking garage. Ethan, she said, stopping several feet away, what are you doing here? I needed to talk to you, Ethan said. You've been ignoring my messages. I blocked you, Lila said. That's not ignoring, that's a clear message that I don't want to communicate with you. I deserve a chance to explain, Ethan insisted. Explain what? How you told me I wasn't good enough and then married someone else within months. I think that explanation was pretty clear. I made a mistake, Ethan said, and he had the audacity to look genuinely remorseful. Leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. Victoria and we're not happy. The marriage is hollow. She married me for status and I married her for the same reason, but there's no real connection, not like what we had. You're the one who ended what we had, Lila reminded him. I know I was an idiot. I was so focused on what I thought I wanted, the image of success, that I didn't appreciate what I actually had. Someone real, someone who loved me for me, not for what I could provide. And you've had this revelation now, Lila asked skeptically. Right after finding out I'm seeing someone successful? It's not about him, Ethan claimed. It's about seeing you at that bar and realizing you'd moved on, realizing I lost you. You didn't lose me, Ethan. You discarded me. You told me I wasn't enough for your precious ambitions. And now that I'm with someone who makes you feel inadequate, suddenly I'm worth pursuing again. That's not what this is about, Ethan insisted, but his tone suggested otherwise. Yes, it is, Lila said firmly. If Daniel were a regular guy, if he were someone with my level of success, you wouldn't be here right now. You wouldn't care. This isn't about wanting me back. This is about your ego being threatened. I still have feelings for you, Ethan said desperately. Real feelings. And I think you still have feelings for me too. You can't just erase 3 years together. You're right, Lila agreed. I can't erase 3 years, but I've spent the last 3 years healing from them. And I'm not interested in undoing that progress for someone who only sees my value when someone else does. Lila, please. Ethan reached for her arm. Don't touch her. The voice came from behind Lila, calm but carrying absolute authority. She turned to see Daniel approaching, his expression controlled but his eyes hard. He must have arrived early for their dinner plans. Daniel, Ethan said, trying to recover his composure. This doesn't concern you. This is between me and Lila. If it concerns Lila, it concerns me, Daniel said, positioning himself slightly in front of her. and she's clearly asked you to leave, so I suggest you do that." "Who do you think you are?" Ethan demanded. "Her keeper. She can make her own decisions." "You're absolutely right," Daniel said. "She can make her own decisions, and she's decided she doesn't want to talk to you. So either you leave voluntarily or I call security. Your choice." Ethan looked between them, clearly trying to decide if he could somehow win this confrontation. But Daniel's quiet confidence and Lila's resolute expression left no room for argument. "This isn't over," Ethan said to Lila. "Yes, it is," Lila replied firmly. "It's been over for 3 years. You just haven't accepted it." Ethan left, and Lila felt her legs start to shake now that the confrontation was over. Daniel immediately moved to support her. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Lila said. "Thank you for showing up, but I want you to know, I was handling it. I didn't need you to rescue me." "I know," Daniel said. "You were doing perfectly fine on your own. I just wanted him to know that you're not alone if he decides to escalate." "He won't," Lila said with certainty. "Ethan's a coward. He only picks fights he thinks he can win." That evening, over dinner, Lila talked through what had happened with fresh perspective. "You know what the weirdest part was?" she said. "I realized I don't have feelings for him anymore, not even residual ones. Looking at him, hearing him talk about his regrets, and I just felt nothing. Or not nothing, I felt annoyed that he was wasting my time." "That's progress," Daniel said. "It is," Lila agreed. 3 years ago, if he'd come back and said he made a mistake, I probably would have taken him back. I would have been so desperate to believe I was enough that I'd have ignored all the red flags. But now I can see clearly what he is, someone who only values things that make him look good. And I deserve so much better than that." "You do," Daniel confirmed. "So much better." Lila looked at Daniel across the table, this man who'd started as a desperate plea and become so much more. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For seeing me, for valuing me exactly as I am, for never making me feel like I need to be more or different or better to deserve your attention. For the past 2 months, you've shown me what it's supposed to feel like to be with someone who actually appreciates you." Daniel smiled. "You're making it sound like I've done something extraordinary, but all I've done is treat you with basic respect and honesty." "That's the extraordinary part," Lila said. "Basic respect and honesty shouldn't feel revolutionary, but after Ethan, they do." Over the next few months, Lila and Daniel's relationship deepened in ways that felt both natural and precious. They fell into easy routines: Sunday morning coffee, Wednesday evening walks, spontaneous text messages about random thoughts. Daniel continued to keep most of his wealth invisible in their relationship. They went to normal restaurants, not just expensive ones. They had movie nights at home instead of always going out. He supported her work, but never tried to solve her professional problems with money or connections. He treated her as an equal partner, not someone to be managed or improved. Lila began to understand that Daniel's loneliness hadn't been about lacking people around him. It had been about lacking genuine connection with those people. His wealth created a barrier where everyone wanted something from him, or treated him like a status symbol rather than a person. With Lila, he could just be Daniel, not Daniel Reed, billionaire CEO, just Daniel, who liked old movies and terrible puns and got unreasonably excited about trying new coffee shops. And Lila began to understand her own worth in new ways, not because she was dating someone successful, but because she'd learned to value herself independent of anyone else's opinion. Ethan's rejection had made her question everything about herself. Daniel's acceptance helped her remember who she'd always been, someone worthy of love and respect, exactly as she was. 6 months after they'd met, Daniel took Lila back to the rooftop bar where they'd first connected. But this time, the venue looked completely different. The entire space had been transformed. Candles everywhere, flowers, soft music playing, and they were completely alone. "Daniel, what is this?" Lila asked, looking around in wonder. "This is me wanting to talk to you without interruptions," Daniel said. "About something important." He led her to the exact spot where she'd first asked him to hold her waist. 6 months ago you came up to me in a panic and asked me to help you pretend, Daniel said. And I said yes because I was lonely and you seemed genuine and I had nothing better to do. Thanks, Lila said with a laugh. But what started as a favor became the most important moment of my life, Daniel continued, because that desperate request led to hours of conversation, which led to coffee dates, which led to me realizing I'd spent 5 years building walls around my heart after my fiancé died, and you somehow managed to walk right through those walls without even trying. He took both her hands in his. Lila, I'm not good at this. I haven't done this in years, but I need you to know that what I feel for you is real and deep and terrifying in the best way. You make me want to be brave again. You make me want to risk being hurt because being with you is worth any risk. Daniel, Lila whispered, tears starting to form. I'm not done, Daniel said with a nervous smile. I need to say this right. He took a deep breath. Before I met you, I'd convinced myself that the kind of love I had with my fiancé was a once-in-a-lifetime thing, that I'd had my chance and lost it, and the best I could hope for was comfortable companionship with someone who didn't challenge me too much. But you challenged everything, he continued. You made me laugh again. You made me want to be present instead of just going through the motions. You made me remember what it feels like to care about someone else's happiness as much as my own. Daniel pulled a small box from his pocket, and Lila's breath caught. I know we've only known each other 6 months, he said. I know that's fast, but I also know that I don't want to spend another day without you being my official partner. Not because I'm afraid of losing you, but because I'm excited about building a life with you. He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring, beautiful without being ostentatious. Lila Morgan, will you marry me? Will you choose me, not because of what I can give you or what I represent, but because you love me as much as I love you? Lila was crying now, tears streaming down her face. Yes, she said, her voice shaking. Yes, I'll marry you, because you're the best person I know, because you make me feel valued and seen and loved exactly as I am, because you never tried to change me or make me into someone else, because you're my best friend and my favorite person, and I can't imagine my life without you in it. Daniel slipped the ring on her finger and pulled her into a kiss. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling through tears. I have to ask, Lila said, why here? Why this bar? Because this is where everything changed, Daniel said. This is where a desperate woman asked a lonely man for help, and somehow that moment of fake connection became the realest thing in both our lives. I was so embarrassed that night, Lila admitted, asking a complete stranger to pretend to be my boyfriend because I couldn't handle seeing my ex. I'm glad you were embarrassed enough to be brave, Daniel said, because if you hadn't asked, I'd still be standing at that bar alone, watching other people live their lives while I built beautiful empty spaces. They spent the rest of the evening talking about their future, where they'd live, Daniel's penthouse or somewhere new they'd choose together, whether they wanted a big wedding or something intimate, how they'd balance their careers and their relationship, all the practical details of merging 2 lives into one partnership. I don't want your money to change us, Lila said at one point. I don't want to become someone who only matters because of who I'm married to. You could never be that person, Daniel assured her. You're too grounded, too real, and I don't want you to give up your career or your independence. I want you to be exactly who you've always been, just with me beside you. What if people think I'm a gold digger? Lila asked, voicing a fear that had been growing. What if they think I'm only with you for your money? Then they don't know you, Daniel said simply, and their opinions don't matter. The people who love us will see the truth, that we love each other. Everyone else can think whatever they want. Over the next few months, planning the wedding revealed the stark differences in their worlds. Daniel's guest list included business magnates, celebrities, politicians. Lila's guest list included co-workers, college friends, her family. Daniel's family was small, just his parents and one sister. Lila's family was huge, parents, 3 siblings, countless aunts, uncles, and cousins. They decided on a medium-sized wedding that would honor both their worlds. Elegant, but not ostentatious. Meaningful, but not pretentious. A celebration of their love, not a display of wealth. But the engagement also brought Ethan back into Lila's life one final time. 3 weeks before the wedding, Lila received an email from him. The subject line read, "Please read this." Against her better judgment, she opened it. "Lila, I know I have no right to contact you. I know I hurt you terribly and you've moved on. But I need you to hear this before you make a permanent decision. Daniel Reed is not who you think he is. He's a billionaire who collects people like trophies. You're not special to him. You're just his latest acquisition. He'll get bored of you, like he got bored of everything else in his life. Don't throw away your chance at real love for someone who sees you as a temporary distraction. I still love you. I always have. Come back to me before it's too late." Lila read the email 3 times, feeling anger build with each reading. She showed it to Daniel that evening. He read it silently, his expression darkening. "Do you want me to respond to this?" he asked when he finished. "No," Lila said. "I want to respond to it." She sat down and typed out a reply, letting all her feelings pour out. "Ethan, you're right that you have no right to contact me. You ended that right when you told me I was too ordinary for your life. But since you reached out, I'm going to tell you some truths you apparently need to hear. First, Daniel is exactly who I think he is, a kind, genuine man who treats me with respect and love. The fact that he's wealthy doesn't make him incapable of real emotion. That's your limited worldview, not reality. Second, I'm not throwing away a chance at real love. I'm embracing it. What you offered wasn't real love. It was conditional acceptance that evaporated the moment I didn't serve your image. Real love doesn't measure someone's worth by their social status or bank account. Third, you don't still love me. You love the idea of winning some imaginary competition with Daniel. You love your ego more than you ever loved me. And finally, I'm not your backup plan or your consolation prize. I'm someone who deserves to be someone's first choice, always. Daniel is that person. You never were. I wish you well, Ethan. I hope you find whatever it is you're actually looking for. But it's not me, and it never was. Goodbye, Lila." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. "That felt good," she told Daniel. "Really good." "I'm glad," Daniel said. "You deserve closure on your terms." "I'm sorry you have to deal with this," Lila said, "with him trying to interfere." "I'm not sorry," Daniel replied. "Every time he shows up, it just proves how much better our relationship is than what you had with him. It reminds me how lucky I am that he was stupid enough to let you go." The wedding day arrived with perfect weather and perfect timing. Lila wore a simple white dress that made her feel beautiful without trying to be someone she wasn't. Daniel wore a classic black tuxedo and cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. Her father walked her halfway, then she walked the rest alone, a symbolic gesture of choosing this marriage independently, not being given away like property. When she reached Daniel, he took her hands and whispered, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." "You're not so bad yourself," she whispered back. Their vows were personal and honest. Lila promised to choose Daniel every day, to be his partner in all things, to love him in success and in struggle. Daniel promised to honor Lila's independence, to support her dreams, to never make her feel like she was less than she was. They promised to be each other's safe place, each other's biggest supporter, each other's home. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the room erupted in applause. At the reception, Lila's co-workers and Daniel's business associates mingled more easily than she'd expected. Wealth and status mattered less when everyone was celebrating love. During their first dance, Daniel pulled Lila close and said, "6 months ago, you asked me to hold your waist to make your ex jealous. I had no idea that moment would lead to this." "Neither did I," Lila said. "I was just trying to survive seeing Ethan. I never imagined I'd end up married to the man who helped me through it." "Life is strange that way," Daniel said. "Sometimes your worst moments lead directly to your best ones." "Do you ever regret it?" Lila asked. "Agreeing to help that desperate woman at the bar?" "Never," Daniel said firmly. "That desperate woman became my wife. That's the best decision I ever made." Months into their marriage, Lila came to understand the challenges of being married to someone so wealthy and visible. There were photographers who followed them sometimes, articles written about their relationship, speculating about whether she was a gold digger, people who approached Daniel at restaurants or events, interrupting their private time. The constant awareness that their life was somehow public property, but there were also unexpected joys. Daniel used his resources to support causes Lila cared about. Her dream of starting her own consulting firm became reality with Daniel's encouragement and business advice, but not his money. She insisted on building her business with her own capital and clients, and Daniel respected that completely. They traveled to places Lila had only dreamed of seeing. They created a life that was both extraordinary and grounded in ordinary moments. One evening, about a year after their wedding, they returned to the rooftop bar for their anniversary. They stood at the same spot, where everything had begun. "Do you remember what you said to me that night?" Daniel asked. "Please hold my waist. My ex is around," Lila recited. "The most embarrassing request I've ever made." "The bravest request," Daniel corrected. "You asked a stranger for help when you needed it. That takes courage." "I was desperate," Lila said. "Desperation and courage aren't mutually exclusive," Daniel replied. "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you need help." Lila looked out at the city lights, thinking about how much had changed in 1 year. "Can I tell you something?" she said. "Anything. I used to think Ethan leaving me was the worst thing that ever happened to me. I spent 3 years believing I wasn't enough because he said I wasn't. I let his opinion of me define my worth." She turned to face Daniel. "But now I understand that him leaving was the best thing that could have happened, because if he'd stayed, I'd have spent my life with someone who diminished me. I'd have never met you. I'd have never learned what it feels like to be truly valued." "You always were valuable," Daniel said. "Ethan just couldn't see it." "I couldn't see it either for a long time," Lila admitted. "But you helped me see it, not by telling me I was valuable, but by treating me like I was. By showing me what real partnership looks like." She took his hands. "Thank you for saying yes that night. Thank you for holding my waist. Thank you for seeing something in a desperate woman that was worth getting to know." "Thank you for being brave enough to ask," Daniel replied. "Thank you for teaching me that love is still possible after loss. Thank you for making me remember how to be human instead of just successful." They kissed as the city lights sparkled around them, two people who'd found each other in a moment of desperation and built something beautiful from it. Years later, when people asked how they met, Lila and Daniel would laugh and tell the story. About the woman who asked a stranger to fake a relationship, about the lonely billionaire who said yes to helping someone he didn't know, about how that fake moment became the realest thing in both their lives. "We tell people love at first sight doesn't exist," Lila would say. "But connection at first sight does," Daniel would add. "Sometimes you meet someone and just know they're going to be important to your life. Even if that someone is desperately asking you to pretend to be their boyfriend," Lila would joke. "Especially then," Daniel would correct with a smile. Their story became something they told at dinner parties and charity events, not as a fairy tale about a billionaire rescuing an ordinary woman, but as a story about two people who found each other when they both needed connection most, about taking chances on strangers, about being brave enough to ask for help, about recognizing genuine connection when it appears, even in unexpected circumstances, and about learning that your worth isn't determined by who does or doesn't value you. It's inherent and unchanging, waiting to be recognized by the right person at the right time. Lila built her consulting firm into a successful business over the next 5 years. She became known in her industry for her honest approach and creative solutions. She wrote a book about professional reinvention that became a bestseller. She spoke at conferences about overcoming self-doubt and building authentic success. And through it all, Daniel was there, supporting but never overshadowing, celebrating but never claiming credit, loving her exactly as she was while encouraging her to become everything she could be. They had 2 children, a daughter and a son, who grew up understanding that love meant respect, that partnership meant equality, and that genuine connection mattered more than status or wealth. One day when their daughter was 8 years old, she asked how her parents met. Lila and Daniel exchanged glances, silently communicating whether she was old enough for the whole story. "Your mother asked me to hold her waist at a bar," Daniel said simply. "That's weird," their daughter said. "Very weird," Lila agreed. "But sometimes the weird moments are the important ones." "Why did you ask him to hold your waist?" their daughter pressed. "Because I was scared," Lila admitted. "I saw someone from my past who'd hurt me, and I needed help facing him. Your father helped me even though he didn't know me." "Was he scared too?" their daughter asked Daniel. Daniel considered the question. "Yes. I was scared of being alone forever. I'd built this whole life, but had no one to share it with. When your mother asked me for help, it gave me a reason to connect with another person. We helped each other, really." "That's a good story," their daughter declared. "Can you tell it at my show and tell?" "Maybe when you're older," Lila laughed. But she thought about her daughter's question later that evening. Had Daniel been scared? She'd never really thought about it that way. She'd been so focused on her own fear and desperation that she hadn't considered what might have made him say yes to such a strange request. "Were you really scared that night?" she asked him later. "Terrified," Daniel admitted. "I'd been going to that bar every Friday for months, watching people connect and laugh and live while I just existed. I was becoming a ghost in my own life. When you asked me to help you, it was the first time in years someone had needed me for something real. Not my money, or my influence, or my name. Just me, as a person." "I didn't see it that way," Lila said. "I thought I was bothering you." "You were saving me," Daniel corrected, "just like I was helping you. We saved each other that night." That, Lila realized, was the truth at the heart of their story. Not that a rich man had rescued a heartbroken woman, not that a desperate woman had found her fairy tale, but that two people who needed connection had found each other at exactly the right moment and had been brave enough to take a chance on something unexpected. Sometimes love didn't arrive with roses or romance. Sometimes it arrived with a whispered request in a crowded bar. Sometimes it came from desperation rather than destiny, but that didn't make it any less real or any less valuable. Their love had started with, "Please hold my waist." It had grown through months of genuine conversation and connection. It had been tested by exes and assumptions and the complications of very different worlds. But it had endured because it was built on something real, mutual respect, genuine affection, and the willingness to see each other clearly and love what they saw. 10 years after that night at the rooftop bar, Daniel took Lila back to the same spot once again. "Why do we keep coming back here?" Lila asked with a smile. "Because I never want to forget," Daniel said. "I never want to forget what it felt like to be alone, what it felt like to say yes to helping a stranger, what it felt like to realize I was falling in love with someone I'd just met." "We didn't just meet," Lila said. "We really met over hours of conversation. The waist holding was just the opening." "But it was a good opening," Daniel said. "Best opening line I've ever heard. Please hold my waist. My ex is around." "You're never going to let me live that down, are you?" "Never," Daniel confirmed with a grin. "It's my favorite story." "Mine too," Lila admitted, "even though it started as a moment I wasn't proud of." "Why weren't you proud of it?" Daniel asked, curious. "Because I was still letting Ethan have power over me. I was still so affected by him that I needed a fake boyfriend to feel okay. That felt weak." "It wasn't weak," Daniel said firmly. "It was human. You were hurt and you found a way to protect yourself. That's not weakness, Lila. That's survival. And that survival instinct led you to me, which led to all of this." He gestured around them, not just at the bar, but at the life they'd built together. "Our whole relationship started because you were brave enough to ask for help, and I was lonely enough to say yes. That's not weakness. That's two people finding each other against the odds." Lila leaned against him, looking out at the city they called home. "I love you," she said simply. "I love you too," Daniel replied. "Still, always, completely." If this story touched your heart, I need to hear from you right now. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. Have you ever had to face an ex who made you question your worth? Have you ever found love when you weren't looking for it? Have you ever asked a stranger for help and had it change your life? I read every single comment, and I want to know your story. Because stories like Lila and Daniel's matter. They remind us that our worth isn't determined by who leaves us, it's revealed by who stays. They remind us that desperation can lead to destiny. They remind us that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help. They remind us that real love sees your value even when you can't see it yourself. If you've ever been told you weren't enough, hear this. You are enough, exactly as you are. Your ex's inability to see your worth says everything about them and nothing about you. The right person will see what you have to offer and count themselves lucky to be chosen by you. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please do that right now. Hit that subscribe button. Ring that notification bell so you never miss a story that reminds you of your own value and inspires you to believe in unexpected possibilities. Like this video, if Lila's journey from desperate to confident resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't determined by who does or doesn't value them. Share it with someone looking for love and needs hope that it can come from the most unexpected places. Share it with someone who needs to know that asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. Because everyone deserves to know their worth. Everyone deserves to be someone's first choice, not their backup plan. Everyone deserves a love that sees them clearly and loves what it sees. Thank you for watching Lila and Daniel's story. Thank you for understanding that this wasn't about a billionaire rescuing an ordinary woman. This was about two people who needed connection, finding each other in a moment of mutual vulnerability. This was about recognizing real love when it appears, even if it starts with a whispered request in a crowded bar. This was about building a partnership based on mutual respect, genuine affection, and equal value. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself. Know your worth. Don't let anyone make you feel less than you are. And remember, sometimes the best relationships start with the bravest requests. Please hold my waist. 4 words that changed 2 lives forever. 4 words that led to everything. May we all be brave enough to ask for what we need, and may we all be kind enough to say yes when someone else asks us. Until next time.